So anyway, I'm not going to say who, but someone very close to me was in the military, in the Marines specifically, and was at the Joint Forward Operating Base in Iraq when they were closing it down. The Joint Forward Operating Base is the location that housed all the military units, Army, Navy, Marines. That was their, or yeah, the five branches, Air Force, Marines. They were all located at a central location, the Joint Forward Operating Base, and that's where all the activity was coordinated out of at the close of the United States getting out of Iraq a number of years ago. This person was actually worked as a coordinator there, in charge of coordinating the movements of the upper echelons of the military from one place to another in Iraq, in charge of making sure the security was set, the route they were going to go, when they were going to go, et cetera, et cetera. But because of their closeness with the upper echelon of particularly the Marine branch, he was asked if he wanted to first participate in the design and making of the military coin that would be issued to commemorate that, which anybody who's in the military is very familiar with the stamping of military coins to commemorate tours and
Yeah.
special events that the military has. They're traded all the time amongst military personnel as friendship tokens. Well, he didn't have a hand in designing it, but he was issued this particular and peculiar coin at the close of the event that was stamped to commemorate it. And there were not, uh, as far as I understand it, it was for stamped only for those who were stationed at the Joint Forward Operating Base at that time. So it had a limited printing, but the type of printing it is very peculiar, and I want to share that with you. So I'm going to send a request to share
Okay.
myself. This is the coin. As you can see, it has what looks to be what would be individual coins that are normally shared that are all there, and then the Joint Command with all the nations that had military involved there at the time. And you can't see it; it's kind of blurry in this image, but at the top you had a singular image that was used there. I think I have another picture of it, maybe seen a little bit better, but it says IZ support element. But at the bottom, of course, is your wonderful Latin, nos planto is venti, which translated says, together we build it. Together we build it. As you can see, this is in an unfinished pyramid shape. Mind you, this is Baghdad, Iraq. Now, wait until you see this next image. Uh, oh, yes, I did get it zoomed in. What you see on this flag is two swords crossed in green, but that is a B. That is a B on that shield. You can see the two wings and the out there and its hind legs down, but that is a B. Which, if for those of you who don't know, Mark in his book Labyrinth has a whole chapter entitled, a section entitled to bees and their significance. Highly educational. Maybe
So,
Mark can.
so what do they say it means? I'm interested in
Well,
that.
well, this one just says United States Forces Iraq right there, but
Well, you know
they,
I was going to say. I mean, the Mormons have their bee icon,
yeah, I
right?
want to see if I can.
And they say it just means we're very industrious. That's what it
Yeah,
means.
yeah, right. Uh-huh. I want to zoom this up. I'm wondering, zoom this up because this one is,
It looks like a
uh,
tower to
it
me.
is. I want it bigger. I want to show it bigger. So I've got to go there and zoom that up. And my Zoom meeting tab is over the place where I would do that, I think. Okay, here we go. Let's see if there we go.
Nice. Okay.
There. Is that blown up for you now?
Yeah,
It
it's
is
more.
the unfinished, or is the Tower of Babylon on the other side. So on the reverse or obverse side, front facing side, you have nos. Together we build it, and on the obverse side, you have the Tower of Babylon. It says that on
And this was
the
just
top
issued
there.
for those guys.
Yes, this was issued to those guys.
Uh, isn't that
I
crafty?
mean, very, very in your face. And the unfinished pyramid shaped coin, along with the Tower of Babylon, the joint forces, and then the Latin inscription together we build it. So, there's not really much to interpret here. I mean, it's pretty much in your face right there. Exactly
It'd be interesting
what you said.
to find out who actually commissions these. You know, who is it really?
Well, the commander in charge at whatever operation it is the one who commissions them.
Oh, okay, so that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I thought you would find that enlightening.
I know.
Anyway,
You know the word for today that I kept having go through my head. I'm sure
what's
you
that?
have like theme days like that. You wake up and there's a word in your mind, in your head, and
Hmm.
it's like, why is it there? Inauguration.
All right. Yeah.
Does
Okay.
that
So
does the word bring anything to mind? I mean, of course it does. It's going to
let me put.
happen, right,
Yeah. Yes.
on the 20th. But yeah, I mean, speaking of Latin, um, you know where we get the word auspicious,
Yes.
auspicious occasion.
Uh-huh.
That augur is in inaugurate as well. Inaugurate,
Well,
inauguration.
isn't an augur another name for a seer?
Right, a soothsayer. A
Yes.
Roman augur is exactly that. Yeah, a
So
soothsayer.
I was right. I never took Latin, but I am
Well,
highly
you live
interested.
long enough and you read
But I'm
enough.
highly
It's
interested in
almost like you learn
etymology.
it
So,
through osmosis, right?
well, here's the thing. A little bit about me. I grew up. When I did read books for fun, it was the science fiction stuff. So they often would put things like that to see the augur. Got to go see the augur, and it was a soothsayer or seer. So I just happen to remember that.
Yeah. Did you know that before any building in Rome was built, they have the augurs go there and check the signs. You know the peculiar way they check the signs. You know this part of the story.
No, I don't.
So they had a strange wand called a lituus, and it was like so long. It was just a magic wand with a crook on the end,
Okay.
like a shepherd's crook.
Yes.
And with their right hand, they of course an augur would do the observation of the area where whatever event was going to happen, whatever building was going to happen. So they looked at the air above, and I'm sure you know why that's significant too. And they divided the section in their line of sight into four quadrants. And guess how you would like think that they would do that. It's
Well, if I had to guess, I
what
would say yes.
does that look like?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that type of thing was around before the start of Roman Catholicism. Um, the symbols of Christianity. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the sign of the cross. That's not what I'm saying. But just in the same way, when the conquistadors went over um, and met Montezuma, the the religion there venerated crosses as well, and that kind of freaked them out. It's like, how can this can't be? You are pagans. Listen, we got to put a
Well,
stop to that. But I don't know.
yeah, Tricia actually and I were. She's gonna be joining us here in just a little bit, but we were reading in your book today, and I had forgotten you had this portion in it. But when we were reading that today, she was like blown away, and she was like, "No way, no way, you can't make this up." So I can't wait for her to get in here. So we'll read it and let her talk about her thoughts
Oh,
with that.
what part were
But
you talking about?
we are in we're in well, it's page 165. This would be in the area of money,
Oh, okay.
but the dollar is chapter 11. I really like this.
Oh, you know,
I'm not really going to give this away for those, but
oh
that's
no,
very
no,
clever.
I'll keep
That's very
talking about
clever,
the
Mark.
augurs. Yeah, you know,
Chapter
uh,
11 for the dollar. I really thought that was clever. I saw it, but
yeah,
who
I think
knows
that
what else.
chapter went well. After the amount of time that's passed since that book came out, um, I like
Well,
you have chapters, of your book that you you like, you might
Yes.
think have gone well, and stood up through the test of time pretty well. And I like that
Yes.
one. I always,
Yes.
I don't know what to say to people, and when they're talking about the economy and they seem incredibly clueless about it, I think, I'd really like to talk about that chapter, but it's always so out of context. To just start talking about the concepts that I just spring on people right from that
Yeah.
chapter, unless you've read the beginning of the book. But I mean, there's so many things that happen, or there's so many like mystical rituals that still occur today that no one questions. Oh, and I had another thought in my head. Speaking of that, the fact that no one questions certain things. I think the quality that Dave had was that he had the answers for questions that no one had ever thought of before. He came up with the questions and had answered them. And he
Yeah.
also thought
Well,
in a different way. A lot of people think from the ground up, so to speak, and he thought from the top down. And
how did
it,
how do
and
you think
illustrating that,
he?
though, I mean, for example, he'd say that the mystery schools, Pythagoreans would section an apple, would give an initiate an apple and ask them to cut it, and if they cut it in the correct way, longitudinally, so that they could show the pentagonal structure of it, then they were accepted into the academy. the they'd he'd say, well, that's because it's a pentagram or a pentagon inscribed or within a circle that's then inscribing it. And so when you look at the certain angles there, then you have the 360 degrees times 72, which talks about the cycle of the aeons. But I mean, he went further than that and he looked backwards or backwards in time and realized that there's a question about, I mean, even where the system of measurement came about. Why did it? And he always nailed it. It was all angelically inspired. And he talked about angels all the time and say, they're not like you and me. And they don't perceive time like you think they do. And that explains a lot. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I
I'm
was I
done.
was going to ask you a question related to that very
Huh?
thing. Is that being with him as you were, how is it that he thought in the manner that he did? Was it the upbringing of in your family? Was it the school you went to? Was it a certain what
It was
influence
definitely
was
not
there
our
on?
grade school. It's definitely not school. I can tell you that
Yeah,
much.
what influence upon your lives was it that intrigued you to think in the manner that you guys have?
I think a lot of it was that could we had the sort of form of identical twin communication that we'd taken for granted since we were born. I think that was the major portion of it because there wasn't any subject that he talked about to anyone but me first. So, and he used me as sort of a grounding point. That makes, and I'm not trying to brag or anything. He would tell me that it's like a reality ground,
Mhm.
a practicality ground. Uh, anyway, it was just
So,
the person he was. He didn't act or think like the average person, and that's a good thing, I guess.
oh,
But he was
absolutely.
misunderstood when he was young, but quite severely in grade
I can
school.
see that.
I think I think I might have told this story before. It was grade school. We were going to a Catholic school, and they gave an aptitude test to
Uh-huh.
everybody, and um, you know both of us, Dave and I, would sit in the class and not participate pretty much. Oh, we hated school so much.
Sure. I'm sure it
And
bored you to tears.
oh yeah, and the instructors uh, had an attitude about us, preconceived attitude. And when the aptitude test came back, they were um, like really shocked, but they didn't really act in any way that made any sense, right? The reaction was just to get angry.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
What? What?
Oh,
Why do you why do you fail math? Well,
I
if
was
I'd
I was
actually fill out the paper,
I was constantly uh told that I was underperforming my ability all the time. And it was for the same reason. Great, I've got somebody's car horn going off. I apologize. But I was constantly told that I was underachieving but it just the the stamp mold of learning, like a lot of people, I think, even today, this generation especially, it was just the uninspiredness of it. There was no inspiration in the teaching. There was no application in many cases. Why does this even apply in a way that would be interesting or to gain? Like I would get C's in class, but yet I'm the kid who in third grade would go to the library and read every autobiography I could get my hands on. All the presidents, I went through every president and read their autobiographies in third grade.
Well, that's a normal thing for a kid to do, huh?
Not really. I mean,
Yeah, I
you
don't.
know, my friends are getting the Batman, you know, the latest Batman comic, or you know, the checking out, you know, the Scooby Doo book, and I'm walking out with the autobiography of Abraham Lincoln, you know,
Right.
or the
Well,
biography of Abraham Lincoln, rather.
I think the way people are educated, well, even when I was in grade school, that was done purposefully to make it to disassociate it with any meaning. So to Dave and myself, I'm speaking for myself too. The thing that's most incredibly interesting to us is the meaning behind the story. I mean, just for simple things, especially if you're going to a Catholic school and they're forcing you to go to mass and you ask questions, or the priest tells you something and then you ask a question about it, and then they fail to have an answer.
Uh-huh.
Like on certain feast days, the special feast days, the priest would wear a purple cloak, and he'd say that was because of the royalty involved, that aspect of Christ. And if you ask, okay, but what's so special about purple? And their answer would be, well, because it's royal. So that you get in a circular sort of reasoning thing with them.
Hmm.
It's royal because it's purple. But there are answers to these things, you know. There's answers
Yes.
to everything they do. And if you really got down to what all the ceremony was, especially in Roman the universal Roman Catholic Church, that had a stranglehold on Europe for 1,000 years. Uh,
Well, you know,
you,
it's well, you know, as well as I do, it's all about the control. It's all about the Horus, you know, Horus on the horizon kind of a thing. And really,
oh,
yeah, yeah, you can. Tricia's joining us. Hi, that's okay.
Horus on the
Um,
horizon. Hi.
the the Horus on the
An
horizon. You know,
an auspicious moment that you would come
yes,
here when we're speaking about the silent one.
the you know just the deciding. You know, this is really you think about this. I actually have a story about this too, about regarding what you said earlier. When we started, I'll connect it. The deciding who is worthy to hear and what they are to hear. You know, our scriptures say, "What I give to you freely." You know, that's what the scripture says, and I give
Exactly.
into all with it with impartiality, and all are enjoined to come. And I say again, come. That's what the scriptures say. To any, and all is a free gift, and this nature then of choosing is inherently despicable. There's a word to break down. But what you talked about waking up with words on your mind one time. The father was actually rebuking me, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was rebuking me. I was sharing eagerly testimony about this thing that had happened to me a while back, and I was sharing uh, the incredible spiritual things that were happening in my life. And then I was woke up one morning with the word repeated to me 3 times: nepotism, nepotism, nepotism. At the time, I didn't understand the word, what was going on, but it turns out it was a rebuke. And what he was showing me is like, why are basically what he's saying is, why are you choosing who to share that testimony with? I was basically judging whether or not the person I was talking to was going to be one able to receive what I was saying or not. And he was telling me basically, I don't get to choose who hears. If some whoever whoever you're talking to, you share that with. Not I don't get to pick and choose based on how I think somebody's going to react to it, of whether I share the testimony of what he was doing. He was basically
I
scolding me
had
for nepotism.
a physics teacher say to the class that I was in, that I'd explain this further, but it'd be like casting pearls before swine to his class.
Nice.
I,
I always remember that guy. Anyway, that's you're absolutely right. Also, but on the other hand too, you have to take account of the audience,
well, to an
or
extent,
speak to the audience rather.
yeah,
Let me.
it was. That's why I said it was a personal thing. The father was basically telling me, you know, based on what I thought how people would react, not necessarily a
Customer
character,
judgment,
not
really.
necessarily a character judgment, but
Or,
was based in fear. It was based in fear and not faith for
really,
sharing
you
or
are the
not sharing for
fearless.
sharing.
You're the fearless Chad. I've seen your
Well,
videos.
I am today. I am today, but then when you get beat up by enough people. When I was sharing what I was sharing, and sharing it so boldly in the beginning and with great zeal, I did. It's right
Uh,
here, and I knew you wanted to talk to
I'm
about it. I
chomping
even
at the
had Mark.
bit
I told
here.
him.
Yeah.
I told him. But it began to happen in the church I was going to. I had one of two reactions. People would either kindly excuse themselves and had to go somewhere else when I would stop to talk to them, or they would see me coming down the hall and suddenly remember they had grass to mow at home on Sunday morning at church and take off in the opposite direction. And it got to the point where people were. I'd actually hear people or see people. They were actually, talking, actively talking about when I come around the corner because I was zealous. I was so zealous for what the Father was doing in my life and what I was experiencing and seeing. I was seeing the things happen in the Bible in my life. I had actual testimony to share, and this was somehow crazy and radical and scary in the church.
Well,
Right. I mean, I can think. I remember Dave, saying things like, "Don't you see? Can't you see? Can't you see?" Getting people to see. And I've already told you the story about how he'd say something to someone and they'd turn like mid sentence and start talking to someone else. He said the ultimate diss, so to speak, is when you're talking to someone and in mid sentence they, like, as you're speaking to them, turn to someone else and start talking to them. He says, "That happened to you?" And yeah.
hmm,
No, it's
lot to say there about the disrupting their way of life, their level of intimacy they're willing to obtain, or um, a lifestyle that they're comfortable with, putting
hmm
God in a box
hmm
and taking them out whenever it suits them. I've had so many friends and even church members, people, whatever you want to call them, fellow believers. It's there's your not so the faint at heart, words to say how you categorize people. Those that are willing to go the extra mile to know intimately. It takes us. It's a different walk. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different um
Manner of thinking,
yeah, and there's a word.
curiosity.
Well, no, that's not the word either. It'll come to me. A discipline, a different
hmm
level of discipline that people aren't willing to.
Well, what does discipline involve? Sacrifice.
Yeah, that they're, it's just a little too much. Oh, you're a little too much.
I know exactly what you mean about people. They're the dissonance that they experience a lot of the time. But their belief in God is a very personal thing, and I totally respect that. But if you're throwing something in there that causes a little bit of a dissonance to whatever structure of belief they have at that moment, they protect that.
Yeah.
They at all costs, because it's dear to them. I understand that too. And the way Dave approached everything he did it wasn't as if he had less than a absolutely rock solid faith in Christ. Never was that the case. He just wanted to know things, and he wanted to say to people, "But this can be explained." He was always very frustrated with people not willing to listen to him. When he said, "But I can explain it to you if you just listen."
See,
Well,
it's
And
a
it's
perfect.
unfortunate.
well, Yeah,
That
we're
people are
Yeah.
there.
just like figuring out his work 20 years after it was published. Well, for me, I think it's all in the right time, right? It's all in God's time. People weren't ready back then because of the way it was set up, or it has been set up. So
So in the opposite token, and I found the place you want to
Okay.
share
Okay.
with him
So
about.
yeah,
I
we're
want to share with Mark about his book.
yeah. Again, we're
That
reading it
I told you
today.
earlier that we were reading it. She was like, "What?" Anyway, she had to leave her body moment. She's like, "No way." Anyway,
Yeah, it was
so
pretty
one
cool.
of
I was like, but
she
Mark
had to leave her body.
yeah,
knows it.
yeah.
Well, I told Chad, I was like, you knew this, and this
Yeah,
is
the
the first
needle
time hearing
master.
about it.
I didn't want to get accused of astral projection because I wear that.
Yeah, no, no, not that. But do you
Anyway,
want?
I'll share it just a moment. I
Yeah.
wanted to share the second part to this. I became so frustrated though, like you were mentioning your brother. I became so frustrated in the same regard with people in sharing their testimony and not listening. They were some, some were kind enough to be polite to let me say what I had to say before they moved on and did whatever it is they wanted to do.
Give you a nod and
They were polite in their ignoring of me. But I
Well,
became so frustrated and angry at the church. I'm like, why didn't the church teach me about this? Why didn't the church show me about this? And I was becoming angry. It's like these guys have lied to me my whole life, and they're not wanting to address this very thing in Scripture that I'm bringing
Mhm.
to their attention. These hypocrites. Well, that was another rebuke moment from the Father. I was feeling this sense of anger. I was by myself in the office, and I was getting to the point of just raging at the deception that was going on. He goes, "They're mine. They are mine. These are my kids. They are mine." He said it to me 3 times. By the time he said it to me in my spirit the third time, I wanted to crawl under my chair for shame at having even had the thought. Essentially, what he was sharing with me is this. He says, they may have a lot wrong, but it was by them that you came to know me to begin with. These are my kids. You don't get to scold them. You think of somebody trying to scold your children in your presence, how you would react to someone trying to discipline harshly your children in your presence as the parent without consulting you. How well that would go over with you as a parent. How well does that go over? Not well. It wouldn't have gone over very well if somebody had raised a hand to my kid in my presence to discipline them about something
or
without
verbally.
consulting me or bringing them to me. It would not go well with that parent. It would not go well with them to try to bring any kind of discipline or
Correction.
correction to my child without coming to me. And the father views this much the same way as he does about all his kids, no matter where they are in their walk with him or understanding in regards to this. And so he takes very seriously the correction of his children without consulting him first about it.
Mm.
They're his kids. And what you need to do if you see something wrong is come to him with it, not go to them and try to correct them.
I learned a long time ago. It's always been my well, it's had to be because it's the way it was for me all my life. Is I can't convince anyone of anything. I can present information, and it's up to them to choose to seek it out. It's up to them to choose to believe, and it's up to them and the Father to reveal it because He's the one who reveals truth to the ones that He calls out. People they have the choice to dismiss, but ultimately it's just our job to reveal.
Yes.
And whoever wants to partake, that's on them, right?
Amen.
right. I'm just thinking, if there's a question and you're there to answer it, people are extremely happy. I see that, I mean, completely on the opposite side. So why not search the thing out?
Yes,
Um,
that's our 2 cents.
it's yeah, talking about everybody's ministry. Um, you have certain skills, certain
Well,
desires as far as knowing facts, knowing why things are, and other people perhaps aren't as skillful as or have the background that's necessary too,
Yes.
to come up
well,
with
she was.
an answer to a lot of questions that other people might have.
He can still see us. I went to his book to
Oh,
get to the page that you were because I'm going to read it, um, so people can share that this part of your book blew Tricia away. And she said to me, "You knew this, and you haven't talked to me about it." It's like, well, I don't know what's going to blow your mind and what isn't, and we will probably eventually get there. But yeah, this was pretty cool. Um,
we at least got to chapter 10 that we were talking about.
Yes. So it's I'm almost there. It's actually page 177, I think. Unless this edited version is different. I think this edited version might be a little bit different.
Well, let Mark find it. It says book. He might
It
be able to
is.
find it
Well,
easier.
we're right here in it.
Is that the one with the color images?
Yes.
It should
Yes.
be pretty similar.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, I
It's
was
pretty
telling Chad I have a rigor vita, not rigor mortis. My back is absolutely stiff.
Oh,
That's why I'm just laying back like this still.
there's nothing
Rigor
like back
vita.
pain. Oh,
Let's see. I got a copy here.
I just found it.
I have a copy.
so tell him what.
It's going to be on page 166, I believe, of the copy you sent me. I'm sharing my screen. It is the connection to Golgotha, and I'm just going to read through this
Oh,
because
yeah, that was.
Oh yes.
Yeah, no.
Now, isn't this something you want to scream to people every day? Come on.
What the what? I said what? Yeah.
Okay,
That-
I'll shut up. Sorry. Go ahead.
no,
you
yes,
wrote it.
I'm with you.
She
Yeah,
was
so
like,
go ahead and read
she's
it.
like, Mark. She's like, what? It's like, did David write this? I said, well, I think he alluded to it in his book, but Mark
Yes.
spells it out. So fierce, I mean, straightforward that it is
Okay,
so
read
easy.
it. Read it.
So this is the connection to Golgotha. We're in a chapter of money in your book, which is chapter 11. But the connection to Golgotha is the Israelites were intimidated by the great size and strength of the Philistine army that had gathered at Shoko, or which is Hebrew for bushy or suk, a hedge or fence, or to hedge in. And especially their great Nephilim Hebrew giants from the to fall, lie, be cast down, fail. Warrior, Goliath, who openly mocked them and their God. Goliath is described in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And there went out a champion of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath, or Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. A cubit is approximately 20 inches. A span is 9. Normal size for an adult male would be around 58 inches. 60 is, of course, 5 foot. So 5 foot, so it's roughly 20, 20 foot 9 inches tall, roughly. Goliath's name means splendor. What? Go ahead, Mark.
Oh no, I was just interrupting you with a
Oh.
laugh.
Yeah, Shorty. That's his nickname in the camp. Goliath's name means splendor from the root galah, which means naked or uncovered. The splendor or of nakedness would be a literal term for the Nakash, the brightness and most subtle naked angel. So his name was meaning splendor of nakedness.
Interesting.
Very interesting. It's building to something. Despite his small size, the youngest son of Jesse implored King Saul for permission to fight the giant. Saul doubted his chances in 1 Samuel 17, verse 33. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man from war from his youth. David was ultimately allowed to engage Goliath. 1 Samuel 17:49. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. In 1 Samuel 17:51, we have, therefore David ran, and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. Cutting off the head there is important if you ever want to look into the Nephilim and their name alternate meaning of healer. But anyway, just a point. Uh, and David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in the tent. So this is a keep. The Bible doesn't say anything for no reason at all. And then we have this nice photo of David with Goliath's head right there. Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, well put. The Bible doesn't say anything for no reason at all. That's so well put.
It is probable that David buried the giant head of Goliath at the high point of the city, which was aptly named at the time of Christ, both in appearance and for the resting place of the Nephilim skull. The name for the area was Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull, from the root Gogoleth. Hebrew is numeric, and taking inspiration from the lectures of David Flynn, The numbers depicted in the word Gogoleth reveal more towards the significance of the place where the crucifixion took place. Gogoleth is equal to the numbers 33 and 33. Gimel minus 3, Lamed 30, oh, excuse me, Gimel 3, Lamed 30, Gimel 3, Lamed 30, and Tav 400. The Tav connects the 33s both as a reference to the third of the angels allied with the serpent and to the two sets of 33 equaling 66, the two-thirds that remain with God, and brings them to the place where absolute righteousness of God would be manifest to all creation. And I suggest anybody who is watching this to pause there, read it slow, and consider us, because the depth of what Mark is relaying here takes a little bit of concentration and envisioning of the perfection and the deepness of what is being said. Golgotha completed the circuit. Heaven and earth could again be joined. It has been said that the place resembled a skull, but this is the most thinly basic understanding of the whole association of the word. Gogoleth does mean skull, but it can also mean every man, in the sense of all people being numbered in a poll or census. Gogoleth is from the duplication of Galau, or Galgal, or Galau, meaning to be, I added the Galgal because it's also circle, but meaning to be rolled out, roll oneself, or to roll away. It all involves circles. Galileo and Galgal, or Gilgal, as it's sometimes written. David Flynn noted in his work that the area in Israel where Jesus walked during his ministry was Galilee, or Galiel, meaning a circuit. Like Gogoleth, its roots come from the word Galau. It is no coincidence that one meaning of the word alludes to the idea of something being rolled away by oneself. We have in Luke verses 24, 1 through 6. Now, upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. Sarcophagus is Death Eater, by the way. And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre. And they entered in and found not the body of the Lord Jesus. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. And they were afraid, and bowed down, and their faces to the earth. And they said unto them, Why seek ye the living amongst the dead? He is not here, but is risen. The event there is one that God ended a conflict that began in the garden. The words of God himself start the circuit at the pi verse, Genesis 3:14. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field, and upon thy belly thou shalt go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. The Son of Man, the Son of God, hung from the Tav until he experienced the muth, the death that man via the Nakash had brought about in the garden. He was God and man at the head, in the Hebrew, the Rosh, the Aleph, the Shin. Ha! To clarify the meaning of the letters in this instance, the Shin is the symbol of the name of the same God who appeared to Jacob, who referred to himself as El Shaddai. This is revealed clearly in Exodus 6:3, where God spoke to Moses, And I appeared unto Abraham and unto Isaac and unto Jacob by the name God Almighty, Shaddai, El Shaddai. By my name is Jehovah. I was not known to them. At the place of the skull, Jesus did what God had and man apart could not do. God cannot die, and man cannot create or restore his own life. Yet the man who was the same time God did both, crushing the head of the serpent at the very place where the symbol of his power was buried, the skull of the defeated splendor of the subtle one, the head of the angelic bearing his name. He crushed the head with his foot. I read this to Tricia.
And then
I added that second part.
Yes.
Yeah, both crushing the head of the serpent, the very place where the symbol of his power is buried. The cross, the Tav, was there at the Rosh. The same God who walked with man at the garden was with him again at the completion of the circuit.
I was like, okay, you don't know what that means until you understand where you were coming from,
Right.
and the foundation.
Doesn't
that
it
you
make
laid,
your
and I'm like,
hair feel like it's standing on end?
I
That's
was
the way
like,
I feel right now.
Like I said, she was like,
yeah, and I think you went further, and you were like
I added
the
the words.
circuit, and then the
The
and
circuit.
it was I
So
don't know if there was after that. It was like the distance between you didn't read that yet.
The distance between being what he was alluding to there is the pi verse. The pi is the mathematical symbol used to dissect a circuit or to connect one side of a circle to another.
Was there another sentence there that you said that?
I added it.
No, I meant the distance from where Christ was started and where he
Oh
ended.
yes, there was another
You didn't
piece
read
where
that.
well, that it's not in that book. That's in Sidonia, The if you draw a zero latitude or meridian, zero meridian at the Temple Mount, Yeshua's ministry extended 33 degrees no further than 33 degrees north or south latitude
from
from
the
the Temple
temple,
Mount.
and that I was just like, what? You have that what moment? Those you can't make this stuff up moment. You know.
Well, uh, you think about the strangeness that certain verses are at, chapter 3, verse 14. I mean, so what? You might say that's a coincidence, but that idea, that ratio, right, of a circle's radius to its circumference is a very circuit-centric sort of concept, but it's put in very strategic areas in the Word, especially in the Old Testament. So that I think Dave said it. It may seem like a stretch that I'm stretching it here, but I'm not really. I
Yeah.
like supporting that. If someone asks me, it's like, well, isn't it obvious? It should be
I, I
Well,
obvious.
I know you told me when I was just beginning your book, and I'll let you finish. I know
no,
you're like saying
no,
something.
I
You said, yeah, wait till you get to chapter 10. Is there?
Oh, it only keeps
Am I
getting
gonna get?
better.
I know I'm like,
I
he's
know.
like, oh, you just wait, and I'm like, oh my
we're
god,
at chapter
I
11
finished.
now, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's when you understand um we were talking the gravity. Mark and I were talking before you got in here, and
Mhm.
I think maybe even before we were recording, and we said it. I think the last time, the etymological roots or the base understanding of something, especially when it comes to language and the ability to relay concepts or ideas or images or pictures, the first impression, but more importantly, the correct and absolute true impression of an understanding, and that which is heavenly in nature. And then you understand that a circuit or that of completion of wholeness is utterly sacred to our Father.
Mm.
The principal nature of so many things operate in a circular motif. Um, Mark has right now uploaded the other day, I think, um, that of a color wheel and the circular nature of colors when placed in a circular pattern. He
Was
was
that
talking
different than
about
what you
the,
uploaded today?
you think about the alphabet and I think, accurate depiction of the Hebrew alphabet
I
being first
I
inscribed
think
in
you
inscription.
mean that video called the Riddle of Purple.
The riddle of
So
purple,
yeah,
Ah.
the
the
Riddle of
riddle of
Purple.
purple.
Right.
But it's the basics of how things actually function. I mean, circuit in and of itself, circuit or circuit, electricity. We know AC, DC, the AC does not work unless a completion of a circuit is made. The basics of reality operate on this concept of completion. So this is the power of knowledge, right? This is the power of knowledge and the truth of the knowledge. It's not having some or a piece or a part. It's having the whole of it. When you have the whole of it and you realize the perfectness of it, then you have something.
Like the thing that pops out in my mind about the one of the salient points of that video was we perceive a circuit because God made it so for us, outside of the physicality of the nature of light itself. I don't know if you follow kind of what I mean by that, but if you haven't seen that video, I'm just saying
Yes, we
that
have watched it.
violet, the
Say it
royal
again.
color that
Say
I
it.
was talking about, or purple, that only royalty can wear
Hmm.
is a non-spectral color, which means there isn't actually a frequency that equals purple. If you
Hmm.
look at a color wheel, I put
Yeah.
purple at the top because then you can see the transition between high frequency and low frequency, blue, high frequency, purple, red. But how is that even possible? Our eyes put that together. High and low frequency join harmoniously, make a
Hmm.
circuit. Definitely, that is the royal color because of that very meaning. And then, it's so circuit centric. That's a good one. What's that word? Automata? No, it's not. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that word. I've been very inarticulate lately because
I
I've been
mean,
snoring
what
at
you
night, I
said
think.
makes me think of the self-licking ice cream cone.
Yes. So anyhow, now I'm
That's
stuck
also a
because I don't
circuit.
even know what the name of that word is I wanted to say, but
It'll come
I
to
find
you.
it fascinating and remarkable that no one's ever talked about it before, and also remarkable. And I'm not trying to be at least a bit pretentious, but no one's interested. And no one was interested in the article I wrote. I don't know why, it was just maybe not exposed to anybody. And that video isn't doing well at all because like it's me, man. I gotta have better delivery. But I'm like,
I,
I wish I could scream
Mark,
from the rooftops. Can't you guys see this? You know this. You know what this means? Do
it's
you
it's
know what
not
this
the
means?
it's not the
It'll be here.
information. It starts with where we begin. What I said at the very first is what you and David did for me was taught me. Tricia said this very same thing in other words, using the other words, different words, but saying the same thing is taught me how to think. There is a manner of thinking and a manner of consideration that the Western mind, by design, and the form in which we are trained to think, does not stop. We are not investigative. We are taught to memorize information and how one bit of memorized information goes with other memorized information. And if the two line up, then you can do a job. You've memorized this, you've never memorized this. This is not the manner, and I was asking Mark about this before you got in here, of training that the ancients
Mm.
were taught in. They were taught how to learn by question. What is the question? This is a blade of grass. What is the question? You had to consider what is meant by even asking the question. What does he want me to know? What is it that I should know? What question is it I'm to be asking about the grass? Why should I ask about the grass? So this manner of learning by asking a question and investigation to understand and comprehend as much as you can about something, and then the meaning of what meaning, how the application of what it means to your life is, it's simply not the way we're trained to think. It's not how we approach things. The Hebrew and the older language were, of course, first in pictograph form. Our English says a word is, a painting is worth 1,000 words, billion words. Why? Because you can look at an image and there are 1,000 different sentences that you can use to explain everything you see going on there
That's good.
and describe there. And so a picture to display a concept is more powerful than 1,000 words you need to explain that picture.
Hmm.
And we simply don't approach life this way. And the point I was getting at with you, Mark, the impact, why it does, this is why what you have written is not impacting this generation today. And why I hope those who would hear me talking would stop to consider that what you do by not giving yourself time to consider, by not stopping to ask, why is this important or why should this be important, or giving yourself the time to try to comprehend something that doesn't immediately give you an answer. Look, we can't even type words anymore. All we do is send emojis. We send emojis. Why? Because we can't be bothered to take the time to write out a sentence. We don't have that kind of mental capacity to stop for that amount of time, lest you should understand and comprehend something a little deeper. We don't have we've purposefully been taken away from that capacity to comprehend. It's not that it's not meaningful. It's not that it's not meant to be understood. It's one of the most essential things that we should understand. I will say what he said about the color purple another way. It's the red and blue frequencies overlaid each other. They're overlaid, just as in the alphabet wheel of the aleph and tav being overlaid to make the X symbol or the ox head. I actually drew that out for Tricia when she was like, "Wait, what? I don't understand." So I was like, "Yes, the aleph and tav. You see how they come together?" So I draw the aleph tav and I said, "Look, it's the ox head on the side." She's like, "No." Turned it in the aleph, and she's like, she's being blown away daily by this stuff. But
Yeah.
it's the
Well,
the aleph,
I'm consuming it.
the
Yeah.
aleph and
I
tav
hope
being
it's a pleasant
overlaid.
experience.
It's no different than color. So
I,
here's what.
And my sister as well.
So
So my
oh,
so
sister was
really?
like, "Oh
and
my gosh,
I
please
why
just
keep
why
I
you're
just
sending
had
me
to
these
show
videos."
this.
yeah. So while you're explaining it,
Okay.
knowing then, here's something. Knowing then this pattern that Yah has of his base systems working as a circuit, and then their origin as a circuit, then undiscovered basics of our reality should be looked for in what form? circuit. If you can find one piece, you know that there's a piece that should make that a circular or a whole in terms of function in all things.
Yep.
Music itself, also in sound, should be circular. You see a sound wave, right? You've seen it with the sand.
Oh yeah, the patterns. What was that clip that you just showed, Mark?
Yes,
Oh,
share.
that was the temple, the separating curtain between the Holy of Holy and the outer. Let me see if I can. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's do it again.
Where's that from?
That is
Temple of Solomon.
Oh.
I'm not really sure the configuration of Herod's temple, but this is the high priest standing in front of the barrier between the holiest room, and
Wow.
this is the configuration. Even his robe is configured in the same way.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't know. You probably ask a Jewish scholar about it. They may be able to tell you the answer. I don't know though. I haven't heard it from anybody. But
Gotcha.
you have to get
oh, I
it.
keep having all these ideas, and I keep thinking, oh, now it's gone. Well, I really wanted to say this to you, and now it's gone.
I'm I locked the lips, so I'm all ears. Did you forget what it was?
Oh no, I was going to say something, and I forgot what I was going to say before. But going on from that,
We're gonna have
that
to
circuit
when
idea.
we hear him breathe in, pause because he's got some.
Yeah.
We're trying to look
I'm
for
gonna
your
put my.
cues of when you're ready to say something.
Well, he was going to talk.
I've also been trying to mute my audio because the last ones we've done, I'm like, wow, who's making all that desk noise? Oh, it's me. My chair makes noise, and I rock on it, and
You were going to talk about the etymology and understanding of the word academia.
Oh,
although it is in the book later on, I don't think you've gotten there.
okay.
But speaking of Rome in mythology, Greek and then Roman mythology, it is. I don't know if you were Stanley Kubrick, you would understand, and having a classical education, you probably, if you got a good one, would understand as well. But it reveals all the stuff, all the tricks of Lucifer. Let's say it that way. All the tricks he's been using to identify himself and his mission, and as well as obfuscate himself and his mission, is all in mythology, and it's all sort of a recapitulation. Every story is almost like the other one, but you have to pick out the meaning of it. And when you're exposed to it at first, it really seems random, maybe nonsensical, or maybe grasping. Oh, really? But if you can show story after story talking about the same theme, then people start getting it. And if I was going to say what almost all mythology is, the most vulgar representation graphically of what mythology is that Baphomet statue. The picture of the Azazel goat with the torch on his head, one arm down and one arm up, reveals a vulgar representation of what mythology was or is or was, the meaning in it. And I say vulgar because it is the absolute most vulgar way of representing that. I don't know, you understand kind of what I'm getting at?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
with that, that thing that the academic sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Smugness that you get is pretty ridiculous, especially today, because it seems like academics are the most closed-minded. Not all, but some are really some of the most closed-minded and jealous of the things that they know and the work that they had to do to get to know them and to get that level of prestige. They love that. But Academos was the name of a hero in Greece. It was in Athens, I believe it was in Athens. So this is an idea, right? Athena was the bright-eyed goddess. Why bright-eyed? Because she knows that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. She knows. She can see. Why does she have an owl all the time? When you show Athena, she has an owl next to her. Because the owl sees in the dark. The owl can see as well. The owl has this representation of knowing, that knowledge, that light that she has. And so the story goes, and it's really messed up, right? So Theseus, and when you start talking about mythology, people's eyes glaze, or
Well,
the story of the labyrinth, the Minotaur,
yes.
Theseus. So Theseus, the same Theseus, kidnapped Helen. And this is when she was 12. Helen of Troy, the same Helen of Troy, but she was 12. Kidnapped her, and he hid her in the garden, or Athena's garden, that had all these olive trees growing. It was a sacred garden to Athena. It was now it's called the Garden of Academos, but because Academos was a hero that did something, but I'll get to that. And so Theseus took her and hid her there, and she had two brothers. You know, the twins. You heard of Gemini? The Dioscuri, I think is what they were called. Pollux and Castor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what their names were, and Helen was their sister.
Yes.
So, stopping for a second, Helen means light. Now you have the two twins. So you have light in the center and the two twins. And they're searching for the light. And the light is in the olive grove, where you crush olives to get the oil to make lamps, to get light. Get it? Get it? And the Dioscuri came, and they were going to destroy Athens. Unless they found their sister. And Academos famously revealed the light and gave the light to the Dioscuri. That's the story of Academos. And the thing is about the word Academos or academy, as we get the word academy, it means district of silence. I was like, what a strange meaning for the word you hear knocked around. Oh, I came from the academy. Oh, wow, prestigious thing to say. You must be very smart, or whatever it is. Academy means hidden knowledge. Because who is the silent one? Who is the ruler over the district of silence? Exactly,
Did you do that on
exactly.
purpose? The owl who? Did you?
Yeah. Who
Now,
is it's Hermes. It's Harpocrates. And then when you know what the Nakash, what he is trying to do, he's trying to imitate the Messiah. He needs his body. He needs a body. He has been crushed. He has been defeated already. And you know, again, in Genesis 3:14, what his punishment is. He's trying to come all the way around and rectify that situation. He thinks that that curse that God gave him that stripped him of, you get that impression from Genesis 3:14, right? That his power has been stripped somehow. How is he made to grovel in the dust? Really? I thought he was already a serpent when he was in the, he's an angel, right? There's something that happened to him that was like being forced to eat dust as you exist here. Now your existence is somehow restricted. Your powers are somehow restricted. You're being punished while you're on this earth. And he seeks through his interaction with mankind and the knowledge that he's this is the thing too. He's dishing out that knowledge. He's holding it for the people he deems worthy as Hermes. And the high-level Freemasons know this, right? So if Hermes gives you the knowledge, you must be truly blessed. Your eyes must be very bright. It's kind of sick. When you kind of grasp it all, again, that Gestalt thing, when it crystallizes into an understandable thing, you start seeing it. You start seeing it everywhere when you read mythology. You see it over and over and over. And it seems so obvious. And once you get to that point, can you explain it to other people? It's not easy, especially in today's day and age, and who has a classical education and who knows Latin anymore? Why is Latin important? Well, because of mythology. Why do we use Latin?
Important to Indiana
It's a
Jones.
pretentious language. Go to the doctor and you're like, the tendons in my elbow really hurt. I think they're swollen. And he'll say, well, let's check. And he looks at it very thoughtfully and says, you have tendonitis. You're educated, you say, God, I just said that.
well, the back when I started my job in the pharmaceuticals industry, we actually had a physician who was about to retire for the second time. He was in his 90s.
Gosh.
He actually still wrote all of his scripts in Latin completely. All prescriptions, I think by law, had to be written in Latin for a certain period of time.
Huh.
Yeah, that's right. And I think all physicians spoke Latin. They had to take Latin as part of their education to become doctors.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah.
The point I wanted to make when you were describing this, you were saying why, a snake, something happened to him is cursed. Let's consider this. How do you know that the portrayal of these mythologies is being portrayed from the adversary's viewpoint? If you look at their artisans, they all give you the scene of Adam and Eve with the snake in the tree. The curse didn't come until
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
the event, not
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they use even a snake at all tells you the perspective of the person who's telling the story.
So it's in the art
Otherwise, it would
itself.
have been an angel.
Interesting.
I think you have the color interpretation of what the angel in the tree looks like on my book. Oh yeah,
Nice.
the phoenix idea,
Mm-hmm.
very colorful. Was that my computer that did that? I wonder.
Yes, that was
Must have
yours.
been.
Is it plugged
Yeah.
in?
Well,
Or that's his
everything
timer.
seems fine. It's always a sound that something like got disconnected for sure in Windows at least.
Um,
But yeah,
This is
yeah.
deep, deep, good stuff.
that's always a great
So,
discussion too. I mean,
so the point is, I asked Mark at the beginning of this, before he got in there. My question was to him and for David. How is it? This is
oh,
what intrigues me. How is it that David and Mark had this mind to understand and gain this perspective? The the intrigue or the curiosity. What
What led you
what
down this road?
led to being one so intrigued by or inspired to want to comprehend this at all?
Did I miss the answer?
I was going to say, I'm sure this has happened to you, Chad. As you're writing, you're feeling inspired.
Mm.
And Dave said to me, there are certain portions of the book when he was writing, he felt like it was a transmission,
Mm.
which was a very invigorating experience. And I know what he was talking about. And it's a highly blessed event to actually have one or two in your whole life, to be able to suddenly see things that have them revealed to you, but in a way so that you can expose the lie that's going on that we're immersed in to people who are struggling a lot of the time. They're, and in a contra fashion, come to people in a way that they're going to start listening to you because of that subject, and then suddenly see it for what it is, and arrive at being saved themselves.
Mm.
And then you have the academic crowd that can participate, and then the very intellectual crowd, and then you can have the curious crowd, and they're already saved crowd that are, spread the knowledge, but not in the way that the cast thinks of knowledge. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, we were at peace and harmony and in a perfect state. God dwelt with us, and that was before all this Nakashian nonsense.
Well,
Gosh, yeah.
I can tell you when I discovered in it what I did and for my book. I think you held it up before. Just shameless plug.
Mhm.
This is
It's
all because of the work standing on the shoulders of others,
mhm.
David and Mark principally. When the connection was made for me, you can't even use the words without sounding like you're making a pun.
Huh.
Connection.
Now that we know,
When when the
all these great
connection,
inside jokes now.
yes,
Remember Dave used to use quintessential or
yes,
penultimate.
yes,
Everybody
I
understands what
love
he's
it.
talking about.
I love it. But when I made the connection, when I had that moment, I can actually remember where it was and like that. Wait a second. This image, this specific image of pillars and an arch being made and erected by the very nation that God had used or chose to judge and scatter his people and enslave them once more, that he prophesied would happen at the giving of the Tanakh, the Torah, at the very beginning. And this image is what was set up. My first question was actually to myself, honestly, I'm glad I can say this now. It's like, surely Mark and David wrote about it. Surely they wrote about the Arch of Titus. I, it has to be that they did. How could they not have seen this? And then, of course, I read everything and I listened to everything, and I couldn't find anything where they had. And I'm like, oh, come on. It's there. It's right there. And then I went and looked at the events. I started reading the histories and the testimony of it and reading anything I could at the erection of it. and then looking at the events that took place, and I'm like, well, surely everybody sees that the Father wrote in His Word. This is not only am I going to judge you, but the Exodus is going to happen in reverse. When He says in the Scripture, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee, I'm sending you back. That where by the way whereof I spoke unto thee, He is essentially saying the things I did in bringing you out of Egypt are going to happen again in your removal from the land. So I just simply went and looked at the histories and looked at the timing. It
Mm.
happened on Passover. Really, really, it happened on
Mm.
Passover that they began this assault. That which was supposed to give them life actually became a curse to them by drawing them to their death. The blessing actually became a curse. That which was to be a blessing became a curse. And I just saw over and over again how all that was reversed. And I said, well, wait a second. He also said this to all 12 tribes. He said, all 12 tribes are going back into Egypt. But I know, because I read history, there were only 2 tribes present, maybe a third if you include some of the Benjamites. The other 10 had been scattered, long scattered, 700 years before. It's like, he said all are going under. Wait a second. I know, I know that other arches have exist in other countries. They're very famous. Are they is there a connection? Is there some connection between the Arch of Titus and the Arc de Triomphe? And it's like, lo and behold, there is. There is a connection. And lo and behold, this has been going on for 2,000 years, that these things have been transposed into each nation in a very specific way, following very specific rules and laws in their erection consistently, and that the governments have been doing this knowingly who are opposed. They have different. It's like, come on, come on. So I did not sleep. I did not sleep when I had that Gestalt moment. I literally could not sleep for 3 days. I bounced, I bounced, and I couldn't hardly even sit down. I couldn't. I was like, this can't be. This can't be. I kept checking and rechecking. I'd have another thought. Well, maybe this. Okay, this is surely gonna. And I was like, no, wait, this is only proving my case. Well, what about this? No, yeah, that confirms it too. It just keeps adding up, not taking away. And it's like, man, the excitement was there. And then I thought of the reality of what I was doing to publish it. Wait a second. If I publish this is something that's been remained hidden to the public, not just to the public, but the whole world for 2,000 years. This has been hidden and only known to those in the very upper echelon who have made sure that this thing has happened. This is exposing not just a little thing. This is exposing every nation and every elite in every nation. It's going to piss them off to say this. I was right that it did upset them. I shared it other time. At the time, after publishing it, all my kids who were driving were getting followed. They didn't know by who, but they each randomly told me independently. My ex-wife was followed. I was followed. This happened over a period of about 2 weeks, where I was just followed, and then it just stopped. I didn't get any letters. I didn't get any knocks on the door or anything like that. They were just all followed. All of us independently followed. And I think that was just their way of saying, we read.
Did
We
you
we read it.
did do you have anything similar to that when you released your bookmark? Or
when you released this book, Mark.
Mark, when you released your book?
uh, Physically, yes. I
Uh-huh.
kind of got ill,
Oh.
stressed out.
Uh-huh.
Researching these things a lot of the time. I don't know. In a certain sense, it can be toxic. Not how to explain that. I don't know. Yeah, and
Mhm.
you get the prince of the power of the air and all the spirits of wickedness uh, will do everything they can to thwart you from doing something that reveals their secrets. And it sounds sort of Harry Potter-esque to say something like that, right? But I had I had a rash that was caused just by stress, and it was a classic Christmas tree rash pattern. I told you that story.
Yes, you did. But I
And
think it's funny. I think it's funny you mentioning
like
it here
that,
after you
that kind of
just
freaked me out. Like, well, what causes it? Oh, stress might be like a shingles sort of thing, but yeah, you have to be under stress, and I wasn't sleeping enough. But to have it manifest in the form of a Christmas tree rash, especially when
the
I was
irony.
talking about, yeah, if you read my book, you know, yeah, that kind of freaked me out. But I
Oh.
mean, it seems that after that came out, it seems the whole world sort of went downhill all the way till the culmination of the COVID scam, the COVID
Mhm.
biological weapon event.
Mhm.
And oh, I guess I can't say
You'll have
that.
to edit
This
You
that
on
have to
out.
edit
YouTube,
that
right?
out.
You'll have
Yeah.
to edit that out.
I hate that. I hate that. So I don't know. We could put it on BitChute. We can say whatever we want, not have to worry about censoring ourselves. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just put a bleep, soundbite
Yeah,
over that.
you'll have to put
Yeah.
Oh,
some,
yeah.
Or a dog
I
bark
need.
or something.
I should
yeah,
probably.
dog barking.
Yeah. It just occurred to me too that yeah, 7 years ago or so when my book came out, all the way up to COVID and through it, was a time that um, things have evolved to a point where communication, like the type that we have today, is here and taken for granted. I mean, just think about it. In my wildest dreams, when I was in high school, I could have never imagined being able to talk to people face to face in high definition for hours if you wanted to, for just the cost of internet access. You know how much money we used to spend on on internet modems and things like that. There's and the ease off and censorship that's going on is so nice right now. It's sort of this second renaissance. The first renaissance was the internet, but now it's getting a little bit more free. Although the the Google octopus of
AI.
information restriction is still strong, and try to find something, try to do research today is much more difficult unless you know where to go. It's like a dark web.
I find
Research
it interesting
ever.
that the trouble that they're having with AI is that they keep collapsing upon themselves. Um, when they asked AI to take the same image and um, to reimagine it. I think that's the best word, to reimagine the image. They keep devolving and not evolving. They keep devolving into an amorphic man or woman. To they instead of no imagination is what I'm getting at. The imagination of AI is still not there, and the same with
And the
language because
creativity.
they're large language models, is what the AI are essentially large language models, scooping up information, but they keep collapsing upon themselves or devolving. And it's like, get a clue who's creating them. Man has fallen, man in his fallen state.
Hmm.
This is what we do. we 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 uh we can only play with somebody else's dirt. We can't make our own dirt. you know. So anyway, I don't know if you had any
Someone
thoughts
asked me
about
that. Someone asked me that question. Where does AI fit into all of this? I thought, well, you're gonna have to be more specific. Where does AI fit into what exactly? To get sort of an idea about that, watch that again. Stanley Kubrick had some part of this. It was a Spielberg. Ultimately, it was a Spielberg movie called AI.
uh,
Have you seen that one?
um, I
It's about the
don't.
robot boy or the android boy.
Oh, yeah, the older one.
It's an older movie,
yes,
yeah.
Was it? Yes,
yes.
yes, yes.
Who who was made to have the quality of being able to love if his caregiver so decided to grant it to him, and what happened. And I don't know, I won't get into that movie. I think I did a yeah, I wrote a long piece about that. I might put that into video form too. I don't know if people are even interested in some of those old movies, but that reveals a lot about the
Have
AI
you?
thing. I always I always thought, though, I have arguments with with my only uncle, actually, who's a physicist. He says that when there's some kind of definition of what um, true AI was, is if you could fool humans into thinking that you were talking to another human, then you have. And I said, but there's never going to be self-awareness.
Right.
What is it to create something that can think and be self-aware? And the the way of the way that software works is a very sequential sort of thing. It's not thinking. It's just operating. And
Hmm.
I think if you need to build a brain if people are building brains, they'd have to be in 3 dimensions, and they'd have to mimic the way neurons are structured. Then we're a long way away from that. But that substitute for the human body and the marvelous things it can do is, I don't think it's something that's going to be achieved until the end. That's just my opinion.
I would agree.
Conjecture.
I can't remember the name of the movie. We watched it. I don't know if it was Combat or it was a military. They had the AI and she was interfaced. She had it in her eyes, and I don't remember the name of the movie. I'm sure you've
It
probably
was a
seen
B
it.
movie.
Yeah, I mean it was a pretty good but remember
Yeah.
she was uploaded, or she was not uploaded, but she was it was
And
interfaced. It was an
she
interface,
was
and she was
interfaced.
connected with it. And I don't, if I think about it,
Well,
I'll send it to you. But yeah, I can't remember the name of it right now.
the important piece to that is um, a living being was interfaced and the source of the AI's intelligence actively.
Was that a South African production? 'Cause I think I know what
Oh,
you're talking about.
yeah, she was a blonde girl. She had like the
Diabolical? Yeah.
contacts in, and
Oh,
she was
okay.
able
Another
to
different one.
visually see, the all this stuff.
They were
It
they
was a
were
military
they
movie
were
that,
flown to this
and they
tech
were
company,
getting killed by these,
flown to an
robots, and
island,
it
and
was pretty cool. I thought it
they
was
were
cool.
supposed to be testing the
Yeah, and
technology.
at
And
the end, she ends up killing him all with some EMP weapon or something. But at the end, it alludes to, well, did it go into her and now it's controlling her, or was she in control? It was kind of a weird ending where it was left for, your own interpretation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
I,
brought it up.
I think too,
But speaking of AI,
the danger of AI is
huh?
one of the biggest, like, immediate dangers of it, as far as I'm concerned, is the unintentional dumbing down of the people who can keep society increasing. I could say technologically, there'll be too much of a reliance on AI to do things. I mean, they're saying they are. Certain people are
Yeah.
saying it's AI will replace all developers. They won't need them anymore. And to a certain extent, that is true. But if you get something has so many layers of technology on it, and you get to the point where something does everything for you, if there's a problem, like some catastrophe where we lose our electrical grid, where is your information stored? It's all digital now. And if you really want something to endure, you'll write it on emerald. All right, really endure.
exactly, or encode it into some stone
Crystals or
Exactly,
obelisk.
exactly. Or you'll make it in some massive structure that can't be erased by a whole ocean going over it at high speed.
uh-huh.
And
There's
it's
a
like
connection here. I'm sensing a
that,
connection here you're making with
and
this thing.
No, no,
that
no.
leads me to another idea that you've heard of the Eye of Africa.
Where the
I haven't.
supposed location of what was the Atlantis supposed to
Yeah,
be
I think the first
Atlantis.
person that
That's
came
the
out
one.
was talking about that was Jimmy Corsetti. Someone had talked about it before, but he's done some great videos about it, and I think you know who I'm talking about. And people have gone on site and said we find nothing there. That I mean, there's
Yes.
nothing left.
Huh.
And I come back to that. Do you know the power of water? If there is, I mean, see a complete ocean of water running over a continent, it's going to erase. It's going to erase a city, no matter what it is, down to the very bedrock. I mean, it has that capability, and just yeah, the reason I feel fairly confident, at least in my opinion, is that he is correct. Is it lines up with the star placement? Not only does it line up with the star placement, people are failing to take into the account, failing to take into account the movement of Sirius. Sirius travels very quickly in relationship to all the other constellations. I mean, no, Sirius the star does outside of its constellation, but it moves, and it was quite a bit farther north 12,000 years ago. So if you do that super imposition of the star or the celestial sphere over the Earth, you'll see that Sirius is in a better position to actually be where the Eye of Africa is. And what is it? It's is it Procyon? the other star for the little dog. You have Canis Major and Canis Minor. You
Right.
have the Canary Islands where Canis
Mm.
Minor is. You have the Taurus Mountains where Taurus was or is.
Yes.
In Anatolia, Turkey, you have Orion where Period of Megiddo is. You
Well,
have
and you mentioned
it goes on and on like that. You have the Atlas Mountains above where the Eye of Africa is. It fits. It fits. It absolutely fits perfectly.
Amazing.
did you I'm sure you probably are aware of, but I don't want to be presumptuous. Judd Burton. Have you heard of Dr. Judd Burton?
Hmm.
He actually did a podcast. I don't know if it's one. I think it was an interview that he did, maybe with Blurry Creatures. May have been with them, but it may not have been. But I'm thinking it was with a Blurry Creatures podcast. And he was approaching the Tower of Nimrod question from a different direction. He was doing it by language,
Mm.
and he was going back in time to look for a language explosion, which is exactly what you would be looking for um, when the languages were confused, and they were one language, and then everybody wasn't. And where in the records in the earth you can see that happening, and he actually sees that happening in Anatolia, Turkey, and not in Iraq, is where these are happening, out of that center, that location where there is an explosion of various languages taking place in history 6,000 years ago. I thought that is very fascinating. We were having the thoughts then, based on the information in David in your book. Then Tricia came to that conclusion. Well, the angel with the fiery flame who was placed at the gate of the Garden of Eden, lest any should be entering in. Would that mean that there is an alignment that takes place in which the door is opened somehow to the Garden of Eden and the ancient land? A timing? Is this a timing thing? And then would it be more about not necessarily what was being built, but actually where it was built in a specific time in which it needed to be built for a specific purpose, uh, at the gate, maybe that it took place? Why this was so important? It's like, yes, Watson, by golly, I think you have it.
Well, I mean, the Book of Enoch speaks about, windows of heaven. There's windows
Gates.
and gate, and well, he speaks about gates and circuits, and Book of Enoch speaks about all kinds of things. But it's like, it's there. That's, you just have to decipher what on earth it's being discussed, and it's like, well, wait a minute. There's a specific language for a reason. It's written there, and it has to have some type of meaning. So, shoot, balls in your court, Mark.
Anyway,
Dribble.
Dr. Ted Burton was talking about how he sees that there's lots of evidence to believe that it was more in the Anatolia, well, what is now we would call Anatolia, rather than what we have demarcated as Iraq location, further north. Um, and I found that fascinating. I was going to share that with you. I didn't know if you had heard him discussing that or not. It's worth a listen.
I mean, going farther back too, Dave and I used to have conversations about what it might have been like when Mars was a paradise and Rahab was inhabited, and what the Earth looked like. I just recently realized or learned that the land area or the continental area of the Earth, if it didn't have any oceans, would be very close to the size Mars is now.
Hmm.
That combined with this idea that some of the great dinosaurs that they find, skeletal structure, couldn't withstand the acceleration of gravity that we have now on this planet. And a very, very controversial theory that everybody just dismisses out there, that the Earth has grown. And I had a discussion with my physicist uncle about that. And I said, what if the Earth actually has been growing, or it had a period of rapid growth for a certain amount of time? He's like, that's just not possible. And I said, I don't know. Consider that in the quantum field, in the vacuum of space, the best vacuum you can find in interstellar space, intergalactic space, is still teeming with subatomic particles that pop out of nowhere and cancel each other out. And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah." There may be some mechanism. There may be some mechanism that interrupts the quantum flux that allows hydrogen to be made out of nothing or nothing, right? And
Just
I
appeared.
think I think it may be a possibility. And as planet gains more mass over a million years or so, whatever happened, whatever that time period happened to be, of course, it's gravitational. The gravitational field increases, so that would make sense. But that's really controversial. But the fact that the continental area on the Earth just happens to equal Mars is very suspect. But Dave also had a theory about what the dinosaurs were,
Yeah.
and why they were destroyed, and when they were destroyed, and the way Genesis starts out that supports what he was saying. He didn't really write too much about that. Those are sort of just private discussions and conjecture, and
Our friend
interesting things to talk
Ian,
about.
our friend Ian just asked if we were still talking, and I said, "Well, yes, hop on." I forwarded him the link. I hope that that was okay. I thought it was. You'd asked if anybody was joining, so
Hmm.
I think he's going to try to jump on here with us, and I can introduce you. He is one also
He's
who
the one that we told you
here he
that we
is.
speak for hours. I
Yes.
mean, hours.
Well,
Yep.
Hey, Ian.
Yes.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ian.
Good.
Ian. Mark Flynn. Ian Chadrick.
Yes.
Ian
Pleasure to
used to
meet
go by
you.
the
nice to meet you. I'm reading your shirt. The Mothman stole my catalytic converter in Port Pleasant, West Virginia. That's good.
It's not true. It's not true.
We'll let these guys talk a little bit. So,
Absolutely.
Well, what do you guys
But
want to talk about?
Ian was known as he went by the handle the Holy Hand Grenade,
Of
which I'm sure
Antioch.
you.
Yeah,
You were from Antioch as well.
I am. Yeah, it was that was 2015 to 2021 probably. The Holy Hand Grenade.
it was
Thou
pretty
shalt
cool.
count to one, and then thou shalt count to two.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people know that.
Yeah.
I used to have it as an intro to some of my videos, the prayer, blow us thine enemies to tiny bits at thy
Yeah.
mercy. Yeah.
To kill the deadly rabbit who got in the cave.
Oh, it's a beast! I tell you, he'll bite your leg off. Did go in there.
Well, it was because of the white rabbit that everybody was talking about the white rabbit, follow the white rabbit, and all that stuff on the internet. And
Gotcha.
the Holy Hand Grenade's how they killed the white rabbit. So
That's
Nice.
great.
I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah.
As time goes on, yes, the mystery of it sort of decreases in the mind of the next generation.
So what are you guys talking about?
Everything.
Yeah, we were just discussing Atlantis and Jed Burton's hypothesis or his discovery about language, and then Mark was sharing.
I hadn't even asked Ian about that yet. We hadn't
Yeah.
had a chance to ask him. Did you hear Judd Burton's? I think it was on Blurry Creatures, where he's talking about his latest hypothesis that has given him pause in regards to the possibilities of locations for what was the Tower of Babel. He came at it through linguistics and found in history the greatest explosion of language actually occurred in what we now call southern Turkey, and not where we would call Iraq or Ur. It's actually further north. They said this should give us a little pause to think about where that, if that scattering or the language explosion occurred here and around this location at that time, perhaps this is in fact where the tower once was, or this location of where this tower's center may have been focused upon.
And that was where we
That's
where we just
that's where we that's where we just left off.
yeah.
Interesting, but wouldn't you think that the Tower of Babel being the really significant, thing that they're doing, wouldn't that have to be some kind of celestial alignment?
Ha.
We just said we just were talking about that.
Talking about that. Yep. All right,
So-
Mark.
Because
Yeah,
if it can't just be a random place.
No,
Um,
no.
Timothy Alberino was talking about what the catalyst was for the periodic destruction of the Earth that was linked to the cosmological clock. And so my brother was talking about the destruction of Rahab, and he says, well, perhaps, the bodies that escaped the solar system at that time are in a very elliptical orbit, and they do return periodically. And I'm sure there's credence to that idea too, but I sort of gravitate more to the galactic electric periodic destruction theory, where as our solar system has a sinusoidal sort of path along its arm of the galaxy, it passes through the center plane of the galaxy, and that's when a destruction period occurs in the epoch. That also might cause very strange things too to happen on planets where you have incredibly energetic discharges of electricity.
You're
which,
probably aware of the
which might lead to something that would derez, so to speak, the minds of every human living in that area. Such a powerful, I don't know what you call it, electrical plasma exchange of energy, from wherever to the surface of the Earth. Be a very bad thing.
you're
It
probably
mess up a
aware
lot of
of
the high technology devices. There's a
you're
lot
aware
of
of the Thunderbird project. Have you
Me?
ever heard of that, Mark?
No.
Or Ian?
No.
Nope.
Well, Thunderbird, just a Indian name for Phoenix, but if you go to the Thunderbird project, you can go there, and where they talk up, that's where they're really into talking about the electric universe, and that effect, trying to explain gravity and energy and where it comes from and where it goes, and the magneticism of the North Pole and why that even is to begin with. But the Thunderbird project approaches that question from an electric universe perspective. It's interesting to check out, but Thunderbird's just another name for Phoenix. It's the Phoenix Project.
Right?
It sounds interesting. I do. I kind of tend to. I don't know what I believe, honestly. I feel like every time I think I know what I believe, I find something else out, and I'm like, well, I think I'm only 70% now, but I do believe in the frequencies, and I do believe that resonance and all that stuff is. I think magnetism is really more than we think it is involved in all this. I think everything is a little bit the way they say it and another way. Like I feel like it's way more complex than we think it is, and every one of us just kind of picks one thing, like flat Earth or ball Earth or whatever. I think it's both. I think there's something weird because I just do. I just feel like we don't know everything yet, and so we're constantly trying to figure it out, and we get closed-minded when we get close. We think, and then
it's actually neither. It's the pyramid.
Yeah.
Which is
well,
the base. I'll be
I mean,
right back.
hey, I perception is,
I was it's for funny for you guys, but
Okay.
where'd he go?
He grabbed his coffee. Everybody's taking sips, and he felt left out. So.
Yeah, I've had a long day. I'm drinking like my 18th coffee,
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
yeah.
Well,
I get to the point of diminishing returns with caffeine. I probably abuse it more than anybody I know. Really abuse it.
well, Tricia is astounded when I tell her I used to drink 2 pots of coffee a day when I was working 16 hours for a shift, and I did that. I would do that every weekend, and then I work 13 or 14 on my regular shifts through the week. It's like you're right. It gets to the point.
Do you have any kidneys left? Is what I asked.
It gets to the point where
what are you peeing straight coffee? I'm like,
Hey,
yes.
if you're young,
How can you drink coffee and then go right to bed? It's like, well, it doesn't affect me anymore. I'm immune.
It'll give you indigestion. That's what it does to me. It gives me indigestion, but it doesn't. I can drink it and fall right to sleep.
Yeah.
But I've abused it for years.
Yeah, Dave, my brother used to come over, or I'd go over to his place, and we'd always make espresso and we had no problem sleeping.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was just us. I used to live on Mountain Dew and chewing tobacco and coffee when I was going to school.
Oh my
The
god.
most healthy combination, but it really helps the study. Really
I'm
does.
very happy to say that I have never purchased or consumed an energy drink of any kind for myself.
Well, I'm
I've
sorry.
had a taste.
Yeah.
I've had a taste of one, but I've never had an energy drink.
I've never had a carrot, so
Oh my gosh.
I don't.
What have I not had? I've never eaten raw horse meat.
That you know
That you
of.
know of.
Yeah,
Well,
I, I,
raw.
I
But I
love
probably could cook sometime.
Chinese food.
Oh my god.
I had the opportunity to eat raw horse meat, and I didn't do it. That's the only thing I've never eaten.
Like
I've seen some reels where these I'm not even sure what country it is, but they're boiling horse heads and then just biting right into it, and it can't be real. That can't be people that do that. That's disgusting. Eating the lips right off the horse and stuff. I mean, it's just, yeah. I wouldn't complain when my mom would make beef stroganoff now. I'm like, okay, at least I didn't grow up in India or something.
Oh my
You know.
gosh.
Well, it gives new meaning from the horse's mouth. I can
Oh
tell you
Lord.
that
Or
much.
well, I'm very famous for misquoting things, and instead
Mm.
of looking a gift horse in the mouth, I had accidentally said, "Don't bite a gift horse in the mouth." So that applies to this situation as well. So
Mixed metaphors.
yes,
Mixing
mixing
metaphors.
metaphors. So yeah, I can see that not going well.
Bite the
I've never,
hand that feeds you.
I've never even heard
Bite
of
the horse
a
that you
gift
feed.
horse.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing they say. So I don't know what a
Yeah,
gift horse is.
I like those old. Yeah, like the whole 9 yards. I like where that came from. Gift
Yeah.
horse. The whole 9 yards apparently was there was 9 yards of ammo in each wing of the Mustang, the fighter P-51.
Mhm.
Ah,
Give them the whole nine
Oh.
yards. I thought it was a football thing, but
Yeah, I do
actually
too.
it's a Mustang thing. Mustang. Speaking of horses, right? Strange how your brain works.
Is that Ian drinking an energy drink right now? Is that right? You're saying
Probably.
that?
Probably.
Oh my gosh.
I used to
That's
drink
really-
Rockstar all the time.
I don't like any energy drinks except for the coffee ones or the espresso ones.
Gotcha.
I know it sounds stupid, but they're too sweet for me.
Mhm.
But I'll drink these, and people think these are sweet too. But I also like straight espresso. I would choose straight espresso shots over coffee. But I'm not bougie, and I can't talk my wife into getting an espresso machine.
You are bougie. You just don't like to admit it.
I'm not allowed to be.
There's a difference.
It's expensive to be bougie. I'd have to get rid of some kids.
Let's say, yeah, I don't know. Mark knows. How many kids do you have, Ian?
42.
You do.
Yeah.
Just make it an even 72.
I have six.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah,
kids.
How many in the home?
4 in the home.
4 in the home. So yeah, he's a busy man.
Wow.
I was just,
Or was
I
it
worked.
busy?
I worked all. I worked all day, and then I went to a basketball game / cheer thing. So I just got home. So it's every night. Every night something. And everybody says, cherish these times. You'll wish you had them, and I've had them for 20 years straight. So I'm over it, man.
That's what you get.
Yeah. Well, my oldest is 20 and my youngest is 2. So I'm going to be doing this for another 20 years, So I'll try to write a book of endurance, about endurance.
Oh, God.
It is fun. It's just a lot. Sometimes it's a long day.
Ian,
Yes, sir.
I did. All right. What has crossed your mind? Anything since we last spoke?
Not really. I watched Mark. I watched some of your uploads. I just subscribed to your channel, and
Oh, thanks.
I was really liking the
You're part of a very exclusive club there.
yeah well, it's interesting because I was big on the YouTube thing for a long time, and I felt like there was a lot on YouTube back then. You could find, pretty much anything you wanted to know, you could look it up on YouTube. There was something on there about something. Now, what I used to do is I worked a job where I could listen to things on my headphones all day. So I would, for like 10 years, probably all day long, I would be listening to things, whether it's college courses or, interesting documentary type things that are audio only, all kinds of just cramming the stuff in my head while I could. And I would make playlists of, genres like, fallen angels or, whatever the case would be, demonology or whatever. And I would save it. And then when I'd go to make a video on YouTube, I'd just pull from those archives, to make videos. Well, now, I mean, I have like 130 playlists and they're almost all empty because the videos have been deleted or the channel no longer exists. So it's really nice when you start seeing like, well, you've got stuff on there. Like I used to have a lot of those videos, like the ones you're making currently on Eyes Wide Shut.
Good stuff.
Like how you're going through and pointing out the occult, stuff like that, and explaining the hidden meanings and Stanley Kubrick stuff. I was into that. I mean, I loved all that secret stuff and learning the to decode the Masonic and all that. And there's not a lot of it on there anymore, man. So you're doing something that it's not new, but it is new. You know what I mean? Because the whole nother generation on YouTube now, and they need to find this stuff.
Yeah, that's the hit that point. There is a whole nother generation that it's sometimes hard to realize, but yeah, there's a whole new generation since Dave's book has been out. But the thing is too, I think this generation is really hungry for the truth in a different way than usual. I think this generation is very special that way. Talk about a generation that's been lied to almost exclusively since their education started. Can you imagine? And being around when the internet, social media has been the way it has been. It gets kind of old quickly. Another phenomenon on YouTube that I don't like though is the AI produced video channels, the garbage stuff, where people just grab other people's videos and they task the AI to conglomerate another nonsensical video, and then they put a new one up every day. It's with a really catchy title or something, so you get tricked into watching the first bit, and you're like, "Wait a second, this is nonsense." I think that's being done. I think there's a lot of funding behind that right now, to not only censor things, but to obfuscate things with just complete garbage. But
yeah, I would agree. I think it's easier to do videos now. I think that people, I don't necessarily think people care about the content too much. I think they want sensationalism. And so that, you see it in every title. I mean, everything's sensationalized, the headline, and then you'll listen to that video and never hear what the headline was about. And you're like, what the heck was this? Like, it was a waste of time. But it's all about having, I mean, because you got to think most people on the internet now are all about ad revenue. So they're just monetizing channels and putting crap out so they can get the ads, and all their videos are 3 minutes, with 4 ads. And so that's how you got these people becoming influencers, because they have a channel. They have like their YouTube channel is huge, and you never heard of them, but they get so much money from the ads. And it's the number one job right now that kids want, college kid, is to be an influencer. But they don't, but it's a non-social generation. They're weird because they live in a fake reality. Like the internet's not real. Like, it's all these people's like personas that they've created. They want you to think they are, their perceptions. But then when, like, for example, I'll give you an example. My older daughter's 20, but when she was in high school, we went to the mall and we were eating at the food court. And we happened to see, or I happened to notice, a girl that she's friends with and her dad eating like 3 tables away from us. And I looked at my daughter and I was like, hey, isn't that your friend? And she's like, Dad, stop. Because I did this, isn't that your friend? And she's like, yeah, Dad, I already saw her. And I'm like, aren't you going to go say hi to her? She's like, no, I already texted her. I'm like, what? Like, so it's now normal to text somebody, be like, I see you. That's super creepy, right? But I won't talk to you or look at you in real life, and we're right in the same room. But it's completely normal for them. It baffles the mind. I don't get it. But she's had pretty much the internet her whole life. She's had a cell phone pretty much since she was in junior high, so they're very comfortable with the non-person to person interaction. It's really bizarre. And I mean, yeah, I'm having a hard time at making myself adjust to that when it comes to making videos. Like everyone would say, me and Aaron used to do a live weekly, we called it Sit Rep. And it was like 3.5 hours long. And everybody would say, your videos are too long, man. I got like through 20 minutes and I just turned it off. It's like their attention spans are not there. I didn't want to do short videos. You can't really talk about anything in 10 minutes. I'm not in it for likes or clicks, really. And I'd rather have a conversation or something that's long enough to get information or talk about things, and it's not culturally acceptable for long videos right now. So it's interesting.
I think again, we talked about this earlier though, Mark, before you got on again. Culturally, maybe it's not, but the ones that the father wakes up, the ones that Mark's talking about are really the ones that are becoming angry and who didn't have access to the kind of information we shared and we did just even 10 years ago. They are hungry, and the ones that the father is speaking to and trying to reach, they are sitting down for 3 hours. It may seem like there's not a lot of them. I mean, there's always a cool factor. There's always going to be that cool factor, like a Joe Rogan podcast where he interviews somebody for 3 hours,
They got Tucker Carlson, and you
or a
have
Tucker
what's his
Carlson or
name?
Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan. I mean,
They're
3 hours.
They're doing 5 hour shows, and they're getting those shows are getting over 1 million views, and I listen to them all the way through. I find many of, not all of them, fascinating. Tricia and I will listen to them. So I'm not so sure that.
Well, Mark already said we're exceptional so
Well,
from norm.
my point is, I'm not so sure that it's not just that their attention spans are short. It's that the customary amount of information or importance of the information that is being shared is in general so surface level that the expectation is I'm not going to gain anything more if I listen longer, because the expectation is that all the information you need to share should only take 2 or 3 minutes. But that's for the uncurious mind. That's for the one who isn't being reached. The ones who are being reached, who are coming out of this mad, the ones who are mad right now, figuring out that they are being lied to, that they're being censored, that they're being blocked from information, they're being told what they can and can't listen to, who they can and can't be friends with. The ones who are getting mad, they when they find channels like this, they are going to sit and listen to a full 3 hour conversation talking about real things, because they are hungry. They are hungry for this information. They're going to see what can be gained from listening to this, and they will. I mean, they will gain something because we're sharing real information all the time, not continually throughout the conversation, but we definitely are hitting on some things that nobody else is discussing. I guarantee you.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a cult of personality, but also if you could if you can bring people in, I think if they feel that the people that are talking can offer some information, long videos can be interspersed, I think, reasonably.
Well, you think
That's what at least I'm going to endeavor to do. I am not a wizard at all with editing. I'm still trying to figure it out. I just never put any effort into that type of thing whatsoever. But the learning curves, I'm not that steep, I guess. It's not rocket science, but I'm getting a little better. My problem was to find the right application to use,
Buffering.
I remember the days. The history of like freer information. I mean, I was around when talk radio started, like the Art Bell show. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the explosion of information, or people talking about these type of things. And then Art Bell sort of went away. Well, he changed into
I
George
can hear it
Nari.
now.
Yeah, and yeah,
Well,
and then the internet came out
I
and it
think
was
it's
so free and it's such a great thing, and all was a bait and switch game.
Well, maybe we
there-
should go back to the radio. We should start.
I think that would be great. Late night talk radio where people just get together and talk about whatever they want to.
I feel like what we're doing
Fascinating
now.
stuff.
I was telling Trisha that there is a great appeal to me. I don't know if it's I'm a dude or my age or whatever. I liked sitting out in the garage at night, unlit, with it open, with just the light sound of the
Garage door open.
with the garage door open, with the radio going, a warm summer night. Then it was having a cigarette, a cup of coffee, and listening to the crackle of a radio like Art Bell, or having the YouTube of his follower that came after on Art Bell, whatever the guy's name on. And then John B. Wells was in there too, and listening to them discuss, with somebody like Richard Hoagland, these things. I spent hours doing that. Just a cup of coffee, a pot of coffee, going through cigarettes, sitting in the chair, listening to these guys discuss some fantastical things or their research. And I'm nostalgic for that kind of a thing. You'd have this thunderstorm going, and you're just sitting there by yourself contemplating. There's something great to just allowing yourself to contemplate and imagine, and let your imagination and your mind work apart from actively engaging in
the visual and
the chat, but just letting your mind comprehend and take in or soak in what's being shared and let your imagination go and connect some things. I think there's a real nostalgia there that this generation needs to be introduced to. If they could just experience that in just a little bit, that quietness, to listen to someone's voice speak through
Well, maybe we should start a revolution and create a CB broadcast at night, do CB radio broadcast. I used to work night shift, and I listened to all those nighttime, Art Bell and all that. And it's pretty cool. It's like a whole nother world, man. If you work night shift, you had the down low on everything, man. Supernatural.
Yeah, I used to work at nights and listen to Art Bell too.
Dave, you're like, somebody talks about like Dog Man or anything like that. You're like, hey man, you work nights? I'm like, yeah. Well, what's up? You a trucker?
Yeah, exactly. All the guys used to call in on Art Bell were truckers.
Yeah.
Art Bell was great. Dave really wanted to get on Art's show, but he got on George Norrie. George Norrie was like,
that's who I was thinking of. The guy who followed him.
He'd have, who was it? Lisa Lyon, I think, would interview the person that was going to be on it, and then he'd have to submit the questions that he wanted George. I mean, George didn't even think. All he did is read off a list. The person he was interviewing gave him beforehand. And Art Bell actually used to have a conversation with the people that he was, interviewing, and he'd allowed him to talk, and it wasn't set up like that. It's just sort of, and it's been that way for so many years. I just don't understand how it got replaced by George Norrie. He completely destroyed that genre. I don't know anybody that listens to it anymore.
I didn't know it was still on.
I know. Yeah, I mean, when he started talking about ghost cats, Dave and I would always joke, ghost cats. Next on George Norrie.
Well, I remember listening to one where he had a pet psychic on, and I was like, after that show, I was like, I am a pet psychic now. Like, this is the job that I've always wanted that I didn't know existed. Right? I mean, when you listen to this pet psychic talk for 3 hours about your pet's trying to communicate with you that it doesn't like the food you're feeding it, or there's dirt in his water bowl or something stupid. You're like, is it people paid money for this person to tell them that their dog is upset with them over the food? It's like, oh my God, your dog has been talking to your grandma because your grandma has been open to the communication, and he's upset because he went to you and he went to your husband first and you guys didn't listen. So he had to go to your grandma. But, it's like, what the heck? I want those drugs.
Oh my God.
No kidding. I mean, we wouldn't know stories. I mean, the first time I heard of Bob Lazar was when he was interviewed on Art Bell.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. But if it wasn't for Art Bell, I don't think the internet would be where it is right now. I don't think they'd be censoring the things that they're censoring right now. But yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know about that. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you think about it, like if we're all concerned about crap hitting the fan, which it might, better safe than sorry. I mean, you'd already have a platform that won't go away. Even if it's just a side play, maybe you just, play something like a repeat broadcast. You know what I mean? Kind of like you watch these shows like Terminator or any of those other, apocalyptic type shows, and they've got that broadcast that plays over the radio. That's like, come to the coast, we have a ship or whatever, and it's just on repeat. Something like that. It might get kind of fan, the people that are just into it because it's cool. Like, I'd listen to a secret broadcast on ham radio, man. And then you need to buy stock in ham radio so that when people start buying these things, you make some.
You got to get the
kickback.
We got to get the microphone filter that puts in that old radio sound, though. Sounds like you're talking through the.
Yeah. Well, like we remember the beginning of our show, and we've had an intro because we said we were the Resistance. Remember that was our thing, and we pulled that line from Terminator where he's like on the radio and he's like, "If you're listening to this message, you are part of the Resistance. Yes. There's more of you than you think there are," and all that stuff. That's cool, man. I don't care who you are. If you turn on the radio and you hear something like that, you're gonna look around and be like, I gotta call my friend, dude. You know?
Remember Bill Cooper's The Hour of Time show?
Mm-hmm.
William Cooper. Now, I think that was shortwave that I listened to that. I find it, and it'd always have the wavering, tuning as he was talking, so he'd fade in and out. There's something about that I really liked. But he would say things that you wouldn't hear anyplace else. And yeah, that was a great idea.
Well, I've learned this as an adult. If you say anything, say it with authority. Like that's all there is to it. Whether it's right or wrong, people will believe it.
Yeah, that's important. Also, adopting an interesting accent.
Oh, that's true.
You could deliver everything in the manner of Christopher Walken. And if you're on radio, they don't know who you are.
Let me give it
acting exercise.